Stop being so dramatic. Those were the first words my son said to me when I called to tell him his mother, my wife of 40 years, was dead. Not, "I'm sorry." No tears, no questions, just that. An order delivered in the flat, bored tone of someone being told to take out the trash. But the real shocker, his entire attitude changed the second he found out she'd left him a multi-million-dollar inheritance he never knew existed. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about grief, it was pure greed. My name is Arthur, and this is the story of how I learned the son I raised was a total stranger, and how my wife, even in death, gave me one last heartbreaking gift, the truth. If you believe family is more than blood, and that a crisis reveals a person's true colors, hit that like button and subscribe. You won't want to miss how this ends. The phone felt like a lead weight in my hand. The silence in our house, once a warm, comfortable blanket, was now just suffocating. Eleanor was gone. 40 years of laughter, arguments, and quiet mornings with coffee, all of it just snuffed out in a sterile hospital room. The doctor's words were kind, but they were just noise. All I could hear was the last faint sigh that left her lips. My world had just ended. My first coherent thought was that I had to tell our son, Mark, our only child. He lived 3 states away, a busy executive with a life we were proud of but were barely a part of anymore. The calls got shorter over the years, the visits less frequent. I always chalked it up to his career, his own family. What a fool I was. I dialed his number, my thumb trembling. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Dad, what's up? I'm in the middle of something." His voice was impatient, distracted. I took a breath, but the words caught in my throat like broken glass. "Mark, it's your mother." A pause. "What about her? Did she change her mind about the patio furniture again, Dad?" I told her. "Just order it." I flinched. It felt like a slap. "No, son. She's gone. She passed away an hour ago, her heart." The silence that followed was different. It wasn't sad. It was empty. Then came the 5 words that will be burned into my memory forever. "Stop being so dramatic." I was sure I'd misheard him. What did you say?" I said, "Stop being so dramatic," he repeated, his voice now tinged with annoyance. "People die. It's what they do. Look, I've got a quarterly review in 10 minutes. I can't deal with this right now. Just send me the funeral details and I'll see if I can move some things around." And then he hung up. I just stood there, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. The grief was a tidal wave. But this was a different kind of pain. A sharp, deep stab. My son, our son, had treated his mother's death like a scheduling conflict. I sank into Eleanor's favorite armchair by the window, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely and utterly alone. The next few days were a blur of casseroles from neighbors I couldn't eat, and paperwork I could barely read. I handled the funeral arrangements myself. I picked out her casket, chose the flowers, white lilies, her favorite, and wrote the obituary. The whole time, I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text, a missed call. Anything. There was nothing from Mark. The day of the funeral was gray and cold, a perfect match for how I felt inside. The church was filled with friends and neighbors. Eleanor had touched so many lives. As I stood at the front to give a eulogy that felt nowhere near good enough, I couldn't stop scanning the pews, looking for him. I was hoping, praying, that he'd walk through the doors, that his coldness on the phone was just shock. He never showed up. He didn't even send flowers. After the service, Eleanor's sister, Carol, pulled me aside. Her eyes were red, but she was furious. "Arthur, where is he? Where is that boy?" I had no answer. I just shook my head. The shame and hurt were too much for words. In that moment, something inside me snapped. The fog of grief started to burn away, and all that was left was a cold, hard clarity. This wasn't just a son who was bad at dealing with his feelings. This was something else entirely. Something was broken in him. 2 days later, I got a call from a Mr. Davison, an estate lawyer for Eleanor. I was confused. We had a local lawyer who'd handled our simple wills years ago. Everything was supposed to go to me, and then to Mark when I was gone. "Mr. Davies," the lawyer's voice was formal. "Mrs. Davies had a separate private estate plan. She was very clear that I was only to contact you after her passing. Could you come to my office tomorrow at 10? A private estate plan?" Eleanor and I didn't keep secrets from each other. At least I thought we didn't. My mind was racing, but I agreed to meet him. What on earth could she have been hiding? I walked into that lawyer's office a grieving, confused husband. I walked out a man with a purpose. What he told me in that meeting changed everything, and it revealed the truth behind Mark's greed. If you want to see how this all plays out, make sure you've subscribed and hit the like button. Mr. Davison's office was the kind of place you see in movies, a glass tower downtown, all polished wood and stunning city views. It screamed old money. "Mr. Davies," he said kindly after we sat down, "your wife was a remarkable woman, and a very shrewd one, too." He slid a thick binder across the table. "Eleanor came to me about 15 years ago. She had just received a large inheritance from a great aunt, an inheritance she chose not to tell the family about." I was stunned into silence. "She wanted to manage it herself," he continued, "and she had a real gift for it. Through some very savvy investments, she grew that inheritance into a portfolio worth just over $7 million. My head was spinning. $7 million. My quiet, unassuming Eleanor, the woman who haggled over the price of tomatoes at the farmer's market, was a secret multi-millionaire. "She knew," Mr. Davison said softly. "She knew about Mark." He explained that as Mark got older, Eleanor started to see his true character. She saw the entitlement, the coldness, the obsession with money and status. It broke her heart, but she wasn't blind to it. She updated her will 5 years ago, Mr. Davison said, opening the binder. She structured it very specifically. "The house, your joint savings, all of that goes to you, just like in your original wills, but this," he tapped the binder, "this is separate. She left the bulk of her fortune, about $5 million, to a new charitable foundation in her name. It's for supporting music education for underprivileged kids. That was always her passion. The other $2 million are to be placed in a trust." He paused and looked me right in the eye. "A trust for your son, Mark, and you, Arthur, are the sole trustee." The air left my lungs. Me. I was in control. "The terms are crystal clear," the lawyer said with the hint of a smile. "You have absolute discretion. The money is for genuine need, medical emergencies, educational expenses for your grandchildren, that sort of thing. It is explicitly not to be used for luxury items, bailing out bad business deals, or funding a lavish lifestyle. Any money he gets requires documented proof of need, and your signature." Eleanor's instructions to me were simple. "Arthur will know what to do. He's a good man. He'll know what's right." I just stared out the window at the city below. My sweet Eleanor. She saw it all coming. She had protected her legacy. She had protected me, and she had left me with the one thing I needed to handle what was coming next. Power. The power of the truth and the power of a pen. I went home with a copy of those documents, my mind a mess of grief, shock, and a new steely resolve. For a full week I did nothing. I let the silence from my son stretch on. I wanted to see how long he could go without even pretending to care about his mother. Then, 10 days after the funeral he'd skipped, my phone rang. It was him. "Dad," he said, his voice suddenly smooth as silk. "Listen, I know I was abrupt. I was in shock. It didn't feel real. I am so sorry." The apology was as hollow as a drum. I'd had 10 days to grieve, to process, and to read my wife's final act. I wasn't the broken old man he'd hung up on. "Is that right, Mark?" I said, my voice perfectly calm. "Yes. I've just been a mess. I couldn't face it. How are you holding up?" "I'm managing," I said. "I met with your mother's lawyer, by the way." A beat of silence. "Oh, our guy, Mr. Henderson?" "No," I said, letting the word hang there. "Her other lawyer." I could practically hear the gears turning in his head. "Other lawyer? I don't understand." "Seems your mother had a few secrets," I said. "Turns out she had a pretty significant inheritance of her own. She's left a trust." I paused for effect. "For you, Mark." The change was instant. The fake sympathy evaporated, replaced by a raw, undisguised hunger. "A trust? How much? What kind of trust is it?" $2 million, I said. The number tasted like poison, a low whistle on the other end. Then his voice, dripping with a sickeningly sweet tone I'd never heard from him. "Oh, Dad. Wow. Mom really did love me. I knew it. This is incredible. We have to celebrate her life. I'm booking a flight. I'll be there tomorrow. We can go through her things, talk about her legacy. I want to help with everything." The trap was set, and he walked right into it, completely blinded by the dollar signs in his eyes. Mark showed up the next day, playing the part of the grieving son with an Oscar-worthy performance. He brought a wreath for the grave he hadn't visited. He walked through our house, touching Eleanor's things, sharing wonderful memories that I knew for a fact were made up. That night, after a dinner where he couldn't stop talking about the new car, the investment property, the trip to Europe he was planning with his money, I sat him down at the kitchen table. I slid the trust documents across to him. "You should read this, Mark." I watched his face as his eyes scanned the pages. The confident smirk faltered. His eyes narrowed. The color drained from his face as he read the part about me being the sole trustee, the part about demonstrable need, the part where luxury items were explicitly forbidden. He looked up at me, his face a mask of pure rage. "What is this? This is a joke, right? You're controlling my money." "It was never your money, Mark," I said, my voice quiet but firm as steel. "It's your mother's money, and these were her rules. She saw you. She knew exactly who you'd become. She did this to protect her legacy from the greed that has obviously eaten you alive." He started screaming then, calling me every name in the book, calling his own mother a manipulative shrew. He threatened to sue me, to drag me through court. I just sat there and let him rage. When he finally ran out of steam, I stood up. "Get out of my house," I said. "When you have a legitimate documented need, you can send me the paperwork. Until then, we have nothing to talk about." He left, slamming the door so hard a picture of him as a smiling 10-year-old fell off the wall. I picked it up, looked at the happy boy I remembered, and felt a sharp pang of loss for the son I thought I had. Then, I put the picture away in a drawer. It's been a year now. The foundation in Eleanor's name just gave out its first music scholarships. I went to the ceremony and saw the joy on those kids' faces. I've heard from Mark twice, both times through a lawyer asking for money for a business opportunity and a mental health retreat in the Bahamas. I denied both requests. My son is lost to me, and that's a sadness I'll carry forever. But by honoring my wife's last wishes, I've found a new purpose. I've learned that sometimes the greatest act of love isn't giving people what they want, but giving them what they and the world truly need. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, please share it, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this one.